The following episode does not constitute medical advice and is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's like GPS for your life. The Sky Vibe Show. Authentic, practical astrology in easy-to-understand terms. With your host, Judi Diamond, and professional astrologer, Thomas Miller. What will it take to reconnect? I think most people will agree we all feel this disconnect. The interesting thing is, the one thing that I am so certain of is that astrology, the planets, have no idea what your race, creed, or color, or religion is.
You know, that's so true, Judi. I just was thinking about this the other day, and I thought, oh, this would be a good podcast topic because it is part of our culture today and the conversation today. And I just got to thinking, as like we talked about in the last episode, Uranus is now in retrograde, and Pluto is getting ready to move into Aquarius, and this is going to be more empowerment of the masses, the people. It's going to be a great awakening, a revitalization, a revival of people having control and destiny and radical transformations. We talked about all this in the last episode, and we won't regurgitate that. But I got to thinking, as that is taking place, today we are, in fact, it's already, you can tell we're in that kind of environment now because we are so interconnected today. You know, think about through just that thing that is sitting over there to your right or to your left, an Amazon riverboat captain taxi guy has one too. And with that, he could be listening to this podcast while he's shuttling people up and down the Amazon River.
It's amazing. And what I love so much about charts and astrology is that it can empower you in any way that connects you, whether it is your religion or it is a book you read or it is somebody that you care for. However it works for you, astrology doesn't care what you look like. It doesn't care if you're overweight, if you're beautiful. It doesn't care what color you are. It doesn't even care where you're from. It doesn't care what language you speak because somebody's chart is somebody's chart, no matter what they're like.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it.
Completely blind to all of it. I love that.
It's so true. And see, this is why, like, we have this saying that we like to say a lot around astrology. You can't make this stuff up. And, you know, because astrology doesn't get the cultural tip of the hat that those of us who understand it would really like for it to. Steve Forrest, the guy that I've narrated several audiobooks for.
Wonderful astrologer.
Who you like a lot. Yeah, you love to
really
read him.
do.
His newsletter recently said, I'm not going to get this exactly the way he put it, but he basically said, I've never met anybody ever, and he's 74 now, who knew something about astrology and had anything bad to say about it. If you understand it, you know that it is everything that Judi just said and more. It is the Google map of our soul. If you don't understand it and you've never looked at it and you're parroting what other people say about it, then you have an opinion that you have not validated for yourself. But Steve said, be careful, because if you start studying it and you realize, then you're going to come to that same conclusion that, wow, this is a divinely attributed, guided system that really does show us insights into ourself.
It really does. And I do, for my personal self, I do believe it is connected to the divine. Some may call God, whatever you call your spirit. You could be an atheist. And guess what? We still can read your chart, which is pretty amazing to me.
But we wouldn't know from your chart, you know, and that's the thing is we've been through so much division, right? And here's the thing, this, like we talked about in the last episode, with Pluto moving into Aquarius, where's it coming from? Capricorn. It's moving into the sign of freedom from the sign of restriction. So all of these prejudices have been baked into the centuries and the millennia, but it is so represented by Capricorn, which Pluto is leaving, and thus saying, hey, people, get ready. It's your time. It's showtime for the next 2 decades, the next 20 years. A lot of things are going to change, and they're going to change around astrology because Aquarius rules it.
I see more acceptance of it, for sure.
So less, even like in your own field in broadcasting, when I grew up in this, you had one guy that had about an 80% of the people watching television at dinner time giving you the news. His name was Walter Cronkite, and he owned it. And in radio, you had Paul Harvey, and you had a handful of stations that were big, massive powerhouses, and really they didn't require a large staff. So that's a lot of concentrated power that people had to affect the masses. Well, basically what Pluto is going to do is flip that completely, and it will be diversified among the people and not concentrated.
And let's go back to my favorite saying that I made up. All the world's a stage, and we are all merely influencers now. If Shakespeare were alive today, that's what he would say. And I think that we had to go through what we did. Now, it was painful. These last few years have been painful, but it's been able to show us what we don't want. And sometimes you need to see what you don't want to see what you do want and what's capable of all of us. And that is reconnecting. That is becoming less divided. That is, and I believe there's many tools that can help you. And one of them for me is by far astrology.
Well, the beauty of it is when you put a chart up, if you put a chart in front of you or me or anybody else, and it didn't have any information else on it but just the chart, you look at it. You can't tell if that's a male or a female. It's a soul. You can't tell if that person is straight or gay. It's a soul. You can't tell their race, the color of their skin, their place of origin, their nationality. It's a soul. And that's the true beauty of it. It is a massive equalizer that when we start to look at somebody's chart, none of that matters.
That's
now,
what's so beautiful
don't
about
we
it.
need that today?
Absolutely, we do. And the interesting thing is, it goes with anything else you've ever studied in mindfulness or spirituality work, whether it's a religion or I've been watching in the last couple of years a lot of near-death experience stuff and reading on it. And they all come to the conclusion when they get there, nobody cares. They just love you. They just love you, which that's astrology. We just love you. Those planets love you. They're trying to give you some work here method, here, look, we're going to give you this so that you can work better to finding your best life.
That's the point of it all. That's the Google map of the soul part of astrology. There's a guy that I found who I just love his music. It's kind of, I would always say, it's chanting. It's basically chanting. And this
kind of like monk chanting?
No, this is a different kind. His name, his now name is Krishna Das, and his original birth name was Jeffrey Cagle. And he was one of the original founding band members of Blue Oyster Cult.
Oh, I loved BOC.
Well, he left the band to pursue his spiritual path before the Reaper. So he left before they got big. But he followed the journey of, like Steve Jobs and Ram Dass, and they all ended up in India studying under this guru named Neem Karoli Baba. And there's a program that he recorded, Sounds True distributed it, but it's called Pilgrim of the Heart. And it's about his path to India and how he started chanting and why he started chanting. So today he applies his musical skills that allowed him to at least be one of the founding members of Blue Oyster Cult, and now he applies it spiritually. But one of the things he learned over there, in fact, probably his biggest lesson from the guru, is all these people, famous people, the Beatles went to see Neem Karoli Baba, and Steve Jobs, and so many people would pilgrimage to India to be with this guy. And basically his lesson was that our very life is our guru. We don't need the teacher. We have it. It's our experiences.
Favorite things you've taught me. It's one of my favorite things. I love it.
It's everything that we go through is our soul teacher. Well, if we have a cheat sheet to that path.
It sure does help, especially if you're going through, let's say, because everybody knows about Mercury in retrograde, I use it a lot. I'll say, and this too shall pass, and this too shall pass. What can I learn? What can I learn? What can I learn? And use it. And so when we have a GPS for our life a little bit, which we already have, it's right there. I mean, my goodness, it's right there. It's why not utilize it?
Yeah.
We'd be crazy not to.
Yeah, it really is. It's so cool. And just the thought that it is so neutral, that's
Hmm.
the beauty of it. And I know astrology gets a bad name. And unfortunately, it gets a bad name sometimes from astrologers. And that's not good. But at its purest sense and its purest level, it is a wonderful study. As above, so below. Jesus said, I gave you the sun, the moon, and the stars as signs. You learn to read the sun and the moon and the stars as signs, and you have a path laid out in front of you that you can choose to follow or not. Nobody's going to make you do anything, but it certainly is a light unto our path if you so choose.
And that's what this whole show is about, is learning about it, brought down to the, like me, that of a 5-year-old knowing astrology. You don't want to be somebody who knows a little bit and can be dangerous. You want to really just learn it, like me. And that's what this is about. So thank you, Thomas. This is so appreciative. I've learned already so much.
Well, we have just scratched the surface. There's a lot more to dig into.
Subscribe to the Sky Vibe, the podcast, and it's free on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you.